Welcome to the JSE. Today we're talking post-budget and we're talking about the budget that Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan presented to Parliament on Wednesday. And we're talking about its impact on the small business sector. Now, in all parts of the world, it's acknowledged that small businesses play an important role in developing countries and in creating employment. However, in South Africa, according to SACCI, there's been little recognition. Now, Peggy, you are executive advisor to the CEO of SACCI.
Yes.
I'm sure, like everybody else, you're putting through a number of ideas to the finance minister on what could be done to try to aid the small business sector.
We did.
Were any of your ideas incorporated by the minister in his budget this time?
Unfortunately not. And the one that we thought would be the most beneficial was that the expenses incurred in setting up a small business are not tax deductible. And one of the recommendations we made to the minister was that once that operation, the business becomes operational, that those expenses in setting up become a tax deductible expense. And nothing about that was said.
Yeah, I would understand in this instance that the minister was under pressure to try and deliver on revenues as well as trying to cut down on spending. So he would try to limit as much as possible anything that would cost the minister. Now, in your ideas, would there have been anything that would have cost the minister that he would have been reluctant to implement because of the cost?
You know, many of these things that you ask for have got a longer term benefit. If you can get a small business up and running, they become taxpayers. Yeah. So that although it may cost the revenue now, it may in the longer term be even more beneficial because they will become taxpayers and longer term taxpayers.
Yeah. So in terms of the budget itself, was there anything at all outside of your ideas that the minister brought in that will aid the development of the small business sector?
We didn't perceive anything. We were very disappointed. We'd hoped that he would cut some red tape, make it easier for businesses to become operational. In some African countries, it takes less than 10 days for a business from the time of concept to the time it operates.
Yeah.
In South Africa, it takes about 80 days. And those sort of things are really an impediment to small business.
Yeah, so you get the sense, therefore, that there is no recognition at all from the government, at least at this stage, that it needs to stimulate the small business sector in order to try and facilitate jobs growth that everybody's harping on about.
That's very little recognition. We were really concerned that the small businesses have got the potential to become the employers of tomorrow, and there's been very little recognition.
So practically then, what can SACCI do now? The post-budget process is over, and the minister has already made his decisions, and we know how difficult this budget was to balance all the competing interests. So practically, what do you think perhaps SACCI could do to try and help the government get the sense that it's important to try and develop the small business sector?
Well, the first thing is that we've got a taxation committee, and that will be meeting on Tuesday when we will be analysing the budget in greater depth, and we will be having a look at where we can make recommendations. It is an important thing too that if you have a look at the expenditure, he mentioned that there would be capital expenditure by the public enterprises, but that would have to come out of their own budgets.
Right.
And the cost for small business of the potential electricity increases is going to be devastating. Then there are businesses that are going to go out of business because of those increases. And we would have liked to have seen him make some effort to assist Eskom in its cash crisis in order to get that price down.
Well, he did talk about Eskom, and he did say that they are going to apply to the World Bank for a $3.75 billion loan.
That's right.
That will be presented in March. So I suppose that will take off some of the pressure in trying to say Eskom must fund part of all this whole expansion thing out of increased prices. But for the small business sector, I mean, we talk a lot about the cost that is going to bring to the big miners like BHP Billiton, like Anglo American. But for the small business sector, what kind of an impact do you see, perhaps an increase of between, people are talking about 30 to 35% having on the small business sector?
Can I give you a practical example?
Please.
In the Johannesburg CBD, there is a landowner who phoned me. He owns one of the businesses, one of the buildings there. It is rent controlled, so the rent is reasonably low. So it is an ideal area for entrepreneurs to be. There is a lady there who is a hairdresser. Obviously, she uses a lot of electricity. He is already behind in her rent because she has to pay for her electricity. No electricity, no business. And definitely that increase is going to put her out of business because she can hardly manage at the moment.
Peggy, I don't know if this is going to console you, but I was just reading in the paper today that that's on Thursday that the minister only reads the tips for Pravin a few days before he actually presents his numbers. In other words, the numbers would have already been set in stone, and the speech is the only thing that remains. So some ideas get in, some ideas don't get in. Perhaps some of the ideas that you put in will get in into next year.
We certainly hope so.
That's Peggy Drodskie.